Demographic turnout question. You're talking about how it's, the problem is it skews so old-ish on this.
And I apologize, everybody's old.
No one here is old.
No, but the point is there any, because we were actually discussing this before the talk started, but the need to introduce legislation that specifically targets the immediate needs of younger voters. Is there anything that's going to be introduced, for instance, that will target college affordability and addressing the debt? And and when that happens, whatever happens, clearly you can't rely on the media to publicize it. We have to publicize it on it over and over again to bring people out if they have this to make it.
No, and that means that you have to have a really robust agenda that speaks to all Virginians. And so, and to Ben's point, because this is an off-year election, you are going to have lower turnout. But I respectfully disagree with him because I do think that this is a different year.
Yeah,
because I think that there is still that wave that is still coming. People are still interested, still energized, and they're paying attention. Not only that, this is going to have the national attention. I mean, you mentioned Delegate Rome and her national base. There is going to be a national attention on this because of the opportunity to not just take back the Senate and flip it to blue, but also the House of Delegates. And it would be historic. And so I think that you're going to see a lot of attention, and to your point, having national people come in and help energize that vote and get people aware of it and to come out, I think is going to be the big difference maker.
And just make them aware it's a state election. Yeah. That the election isn't 2020. It's.
And I think we actually agree, probably in some respect, because if it wasn't for the environment, our chance of taking the House would be 0 instead of 15. Right, so that is the one factor that gives us some chance, right? Like, but it would be 0 facing an off-year election in these House of Delegate districts without a wind in our back, and we do have a wind in our back.
Even with the Bethune-Hill case, the racial packing case, you think?
Well, the redistricting could obviously, if we have new lines throughout everything I'm telling you is based on these lines.
Oh, okay.
Right, like I mean, so if we get new lines, I don't believe we will get new lines because I think the Supreme Court's agreed to hear the case. And this, you may jump in and disagree with this, but I just don't foresee them agreeing to hear the case and then not staying if a judge tries to put new maps in, not staying until they've heard the case. I know there's some hope they won't stay it, but
I mean, I think they could, but I think what they would end up doing is moving the date of the primary so that they could come out with a decision. And so if there's time and they do rule in our favor, there's still time, because that's what we did. I guess with. When the Senate, I'm sorry, the congressional lines were in question, they pushed back the primary. So there's precedent for that, and so I think that if it came to that, I think they have some runway to push it and still have the election. And so, and to that point, a lot more seats could be in play, especially around Virginia Beach area.
So Patrick, he says 15% chance of taking back the House. What do you say?
I think right now it's 50-50.
Okay.
I think that's enough to, because of all these different factors that I think are the wind at our back. I think all those are reasons for us to be optimistic, and I think there's plenty of opportunities. For sure, we have to make sure that we bring back every single incumbent in the House of Delegates, but I think there are plenty of opportunities to go on the offense too. And you put all of these different factors together, I mean, I do think that we have, I think as time goes, it goes much higher than 50%. But so everyone in this room needs to be not discouraged, but encouraged with the opportunity that we have. And the things that I talked about in my, just before my introduction of Ben, are all back on the table. And if you talk privately to Republicans, they're concerned about all these different factors. And so if they're concerned about it, I think that gives us reason to be optimistic. And so it's the same thing that you hear over and over. You got to give your time, you have to give your treasure, knocking on doors, making phone calls, writing checks. All those things are going to be very, very important. And I'm going to be doing my role as a member of the House Democratic Caucus, because I do think that all of these things that we talk about, Medicaid expansion is a wonderful, wonderful example of what a difference an election can make. And there's so much more that we can and should be doing. Like gun safety, we should be doing, and we should be working very hard to get there, because those issues are worth it. They're worth it to me, and they're worth it to everyone in this room. And just think of the opportunity. If you have a Democratic Senate, a Democratic House, and a Democratic governor, we really could do some great things for the Commonwealth. So let me go in on that, and thank you all for coming tonight. I think we still have plenty of pizza, but thanks again, and get ready for 2019, because it's going to be a great ride. Thank you all very much.